We are joined in studio tonight by two of our great friends in here to do the roundtable from Townhall.com, Katie Pavlich and Elisabeth Meinecke, and I think you'd much rather see them than see me. So I think we're just going to leave them on camera for you guys watching on NRAnews for the rest of the segment.
Yeah, let's never switch back the whole time we're talking, even like commercial breaks.
Right.
We'll just leave it on them. A much better shot than us two.
And a matter of fact, for maybe the rest of the show, we'll just leave that shot on after you guys go. We'll get a freeze frame.
That's an even better idea, Johnny.
And if you're listening on listening on Sirius XM Patriot 125, I'm not going to say tough luck, but enjoy the show because we have got a great show topicality-wise.
I'll say tough luck.
But
okay, I'll go ahead and say it.
What I was going to say, when you get to a computer, get to NRAnews.com and check out the archives and check these lovely ladies out. So
and tough luck.
And tough luck. He said it. So Cameron Gray, where do you want to get started tonight?
Wow, it is wow, what a week it's been, and we're glad to have you guys here. And I think the big topic of the week, we have to start with Elisabeth, is what is the story with Tim Tebow and your tweets? I got to tell you, your Tim Tebow tweets make no sense to me. Whoa. I know he's a nice guy and all, but come on.
I'm glad someone else is asking her besides me.
Katie and I had a Tim Tebow versus Jay Cutler argument a few weeks ago. I think it was probably the closest we've come to like throwing blows in the office.
Nice.
Yeah. But no, I mean, if Denver doesn't want him to play, please come play for Indy. We've got Peyton Manning out for a little while.
Yeah, maybe a week.
We don't have any running game. I mean,
but how is Tim Tebow?
Kill two birds with one stone.
How is Tim Tebow the savior for anything?
Oh my goodness, this kid is amazing. I mean, if you look at what he accomplished and his leadership skills.
Then why doesn't Denver want him?
I have no idea. I heard there are a lot of liberals out in Denver, so maybe that's part of it.
There we go.
Everything's political, Cameron.
Yes. That Elisabeth has a crush on Tim Tebow, and that's why she wants him to go to Indy.
I was thinking in that direction, maybe, that something like that was going on.
And seriously, we have no running game. I think it's a great solution for a week or two. You know, if he's going to sit on the bench in Denver, why not bring him to Indy? So,
and then what do we do with him?
You know what? I have several. I've talked to at least one other Indy fan, and we're like, we would buy a Tim Tebow Colts jersey if he never took a snap for us.
Wow.
So they could look at him all day.
Wow. The cold of Tim Tebow lives on.
For his helmet to be off, sitting on the bench for Elisabeth, rather than him actually playing.
Tim, if you're watching this, I promise I'm not creepy.
Wow. And she's not a stalker.
Football argument here.
Nice.
She's making her case. She's making her case.
And you're a Cutler girl?
No.
I made he appeared on Fox News, and Katie.
I made a comment strictly on physical appearance.
Okay.
And then it turned into this fiasco.
I couldn't let her do that based on his NFL record.
Based on NFL record or character.
Yes.
It's simply a shallow argument that I was making.
That he was hot.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
That was it.
All right, well, starting out the confluence of sports and politics, today there was a great story that hit that is the perfect mix of the two. ESPN golf analyst, his name is Paul Azinger, and he tweeted, this was his tweet, he's a golf analyst for the worldwide leader in sports. It says, fact, POTUS has played more golf this month than I have. I have created more jobs this month than he has. Hashtag Martha's Vineyard. And then it says, POTUS has played more golf than me this month. I've created more jobs than him this month, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think ESPN did? Do you think they supported that or were against that?
I have a sneaking suspicion I've cheated and seen the answer to the test.
Yes.
Oh.
My guess would be that they did not support that.
Well, this is from BigJournalism.com. ESPN is coming down on Paul Azinger for mocking President Obama on Twitter. The golf analyst tweeted, blah, blah, blah. It said, ESPN reminded Azinger his venture into political punditry violates the company's updated social network policy for on-air talent and reporters. Now, the question is when it was updated, because recently Kenny Mayne, who is another analyst, commentator, he does the little goofy things, he said in June, almost rammed car with Palin bumper sticker with intent, held up, could have been kids in the car. Oh. He also said anyone old enough to remember real statesmen or women unfollowing this Congress. He said anti-revenue people way more vocal than pro-revenue people. Congratulations on your enthusiasm. We're still broke. Google up Warren Buffett on shared sacrifice. Easier for him, sure, but on a percentage basis, it's relative. What do you think about the fact? I mean, this goes to a point you guys made, and we'll get to later about this whole thing about it. It's okay to bash conservative women and not liberal women, but Kenny Mayne bashes Palin and Palin supporters in particular with the sticker. ESPN doesn't say a word. But someone bashes President Obama, who loves ESPN, has the Baracktology when it comes to the picks every year. When you can't get a fair shake from ESPN, have we totally lost it?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would just prefer a policy of consistency. I understand, I actually try not to mix my sports and politics as much as I possibly can. But I mean, I think that all anyone is asking for are just standards that, are applied to everyone equally across the board. And it is interesting. I think they did update their social media policy this week. I think it was after the comment. So I don't know. That's my take on it. I don't know if Katie has a different opinion, but
yeah, I think it'll be interesting watching the policy going forward and who they enforce it on. It's interesting that they came out with this new policy after Barack Obama was getting called out for golfing more than a professional golfer. And also, ESPN is invested in President Obama. He comes on, he does his whole bracketology thing, he does his cool president thing by picking his teams and everything else when there's other more important issues he should be dealing with. And with that tweet by saying you're going to ram a Palin car, whether there was children in the car or not, that's still a violent act. So promoting violence on Twitter against conservatives, especially a woman coming from a man, I feel like is inappropriate. And for ESPN not to say anything about that, but come down on someone for kind of throwing a joke at the president, nothing serious, nothing violent, is a little ridiculous.
Which, by the way, a clever joke, too.
Right.
Yeah,
I thought it was funny. I mean, you got a pro golfer who said that the president has golfed more than he has.
To me,
it's a fact. The bottom line is it's a fact.
Yeah.
It is a fact.
To me, it goes to the senses of humor on the right and the left. On the right, it was more ribbing and fun. On the left, it was angry and near violent. Talking about actually ramming a car.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what Palin has ever done to Kenny Mayne. So, I don't know why he would feel the need to express that on Twitter. And I mean, just common sense. Like, if you're thinking something violent, don't tweet it. I don't know why people decide to do that.
Well, and then they justify it by saying, well, it was a joke. Well, then why can't you take a joke from the other side? If you're joking about ramming someone's car because of their political beliefs and doing damage to their vehicle, it's going to cost them money or possibly an injury. I feel like that's a little bit over the line.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
All right, so let's go into the whole argument about conservative women versus liberal women. Katie, you had someone write to you named Carl. You wrote something today, and Carl wrote, now your name, remember, is Katie Pavlich. He called you Caddy Pavlicher, and it said, you're Big Oil's biggest supporting slut. You hate the earth. You're too darn ugly to ever have kids. So what do you care about the future? If not for the probably trying to turn tricks on the corner.
Wow.
Now this was a comment directed right at you for something you said. Now what did you write that caused such vitriol?
I wrote a humorous post about arguments that liberals would make because of Hurricane Irene, meaning that Hurricane Irene is really violent, but not as violent as the Tea Party. I mean, the whole post was a joke. I wrote an entire post about that. And I had this, what was his name, Carl, come after me, and it was like, okay, you called me a hooker, a slut, and other names, all in the same comment. And
it was 2 cents.
And I like to do that. I like to kind of screenshot them and put them on Twitter and my Facebook page, just to show people, this is what we deal with on a daily basis. And I think it's funny. It doesn't really offend me. It's something that we deal with on a regular basis. Unfortunately, it's not something that's out of the ordinary.
Well,
However,
when you consider
Ed
Schultz called Laura Ingraham a right-wing slut too, it just seems like, well, I don't understand why that is even an acceptable word, left or right. I don't care, but it seems that it's so freely thrown at you conservative women.
Well, I just think it's funny too because he said I was working tricks on the corner. I have a full-time job at Townhall.com, and that's my day job. And obviously, you don't have a job or enough. You have extra time on your hands because you have the time to read through my posts and comment on them and call me names. So who has the better job here? I'm just wondering.
Well, and then he demeaned your physical appearance, which I mean is a hysterical joke in and of itself. And then he comes back and says, "But you make a living off of your physical appearance."
Right.
It's just like, what?
It doesn't make any sense.
You can't have it both ways.
Well, once again, Cameron, we talked about this the other night, and ladies, we talked about it's the left, the anger, the vitriol, versus we have a sense of humor on the show. We care deeply about what we care about. We have a sense of humor. We have to talk about it, discuss it. But on the other side, it's like it's just why we don't. It's so mean, nasty, and evil, but it's all coming from that side of the aisle.
Well, that's what my whole post was based on. It was based on humor, and I posted a funny video that takes shots at both sides of the aisle when it comes to the global warming issue. I mean, it was a humorous, very lighthearted post, and it made them really mad.
Yeah.
So. I don't know.
Well, today, this whole thing this week about the baby Palins, and there was an article in Slate, and the title was "The New Right: Gun-Toting, Meat-Eating, Anti-Feminist or Not," and it talks about the bankability of telegenic, witty, right-wing blondes willing to trash the identity politics of feminism, and why would conservative women have a problem with identity politics? Talk about identity politics. What does it mean to you guys are in your 20s, making a way for yourself in this whole conservative sphere of media and writing. When you talk about this issue and you talk about baby Palins, I mean, what does that make you feel like?
Honestly, I wasn't that offended by it. Katie and I had a conversation about it this morning, and I wish, I'll give Katie another compliment here. We sit right next to each other, so this bodes well for next week in the office. I mean, I wish that the women who were so offended by being called baby Palin had actually responded more like Katie did when she got that attack today. Laugh it off. I mean, there is so much about Sarah Palin who, even if you don't agree with her and if you don't think she should run for president and if you think there might be, issues, et cetera, that's fine. But I mean, in other ways, it's a big compliment to be compared to Sarah Palin. And the only reason why they're probably doing this article to begin with is because Sarah Palin gave conservative women such a high profile. And I think that we need to be careful that we don't just toss around the idea of liberal media bias where it's not most prevalent. Right. And the piece, I mean, Katie and I both discussed it, and it seemed pretty fair to us. I mean, yeah, maybe not everyone's a baby Palin, but is it really worth going to the mats over that? Right. I don't think so.
And Karen Agnes, who I know personally, and she founded the Network of Enlightened Women, which is kind of the opposite of this 60s feminist movement, which is great. And she made some good points. She went on Fox News this week to explain why she was offended by that. And she made some good points. She said that, they don't call liberal women baby Pelosi's. And I understand that, and I get it. But it's just like what Elisabeth said. You need to pick your battles. You need to know when to hold them, when to fold them. And I just feel like on this issue, this particular issue, they're talking about this piece they did in Elle Fashion Magazine, which fashion magazines are notorious for berating conservative women. They don't even go there. They act like they don't have any fashion sense, not to mention that they're into anything that remotely, belongs.
They're just a bunch of sluts.
Right. Like, exactly. It belongs in their magazine. So it's one of those things where it's like, I thought that it was a huge jump forward to have a profile piece on conservative women in a fashion magazine, because that plants the seed into that audience that's never been planted before. Yeah. Everyone who reads that fashion magazine has never been introduced to, or not never, but the majority of their audience has never been introduced to the side of conservatism on the female side. So I thought it was a little too far to kind of take the one baby Palin comment and blow it up. But that was just our opinion. I understand where they're coming from and their arguments been made, but we thought it was just too much.
But you hear a lot about this, this whole thing about, women like yourselves, being telegenic and witty. And Jon Stewart he was bashing Fox News recently, shocking. And he said, was it this anchor? And it was one of I forget who. Or was this anchor? And they're all three blondes in a row. So, I mean, it's just that whole thing where, Fox News, they just put up, hot right-wing chicks. And then that's how they win.
Right. Well,
I mean, I tend to think that one thing, if you watch Fox News as regularly as I guess Jon Stewart does, is that
probably more than I do, I think, amazingly.
Is that, I mean, they might put on, women who are attractive, but they also put on women who know what they're talking about.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know why, if you have a chance to have someone who is smart and beautiful, like why that's not a benefit. So yeah, I'm not really quite sure. I mean, yeah, and that's the other thing is, you can laugh about that, you can make a joke about that, and I have a feeling that probably, I've heard anchors and guests on Fox News joke about, different things with appearances. So I think that everyone takes it in stride.
Well, and it's one of those things too, where liberals are constantly saying we should judge people, and conservatives are saying we should judge people by their character. Yet when it comes to conservative women who want to look like women and girls, They don't do that. They can only get to the physical part, and they act like just because you want to, not dress like maybe Janet Napolitano, that you want to act like a female, that you don't have a brain, and that's just not true. I mean, Megyn Kelly is a lawyer. Shannon Bream is a very successful reporter. I mean, you have a lot of these people at Fox News have very successful careers. They're not willing to look past the physical aspect of who these people are, and it's pretty unfortunate, I think.
Unfortunately, a little inside here for you ladies, a lot of guys are intimidated by good-looking women who are smart as well.
Absolutely.
So we don't happen to be that, but
Sure.
I'll let you know in 15 minutes.
I'm quaking in my boots as we speak.
You're listening to Elisabeth Meinecke and Katie Pavlich. This is the Roundtable on Cam and Company. And ladies, you brought along this wonderful Townhall Magazine. It's very nice, and I'd love to take a minute to talk to you about your cover story. I think this is a great, obviously timing, but this is a great story. Safer 10 years later. We're on the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. Let's talk about that for a minute. Are we winning the war on terror? Let's start right there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, actually, one of our staff members got to interview John Yoo, who was, in the White House when all this was going on, and they did say that strides have been made. That he feels that there was so much, and right immediately in the aftermath of 9/11, they were trying to gather intelligence on Al Qaeda, and they were trying to make sure another attack didn't happen again. And one of the points that came out in that piece was there's a lot more sharing between the agencies of information and intelligence, and that's definitely been a stride forward. So, I think the theory of the piece is that we cannot let down our guard, but strides have been made, and that's encouraging to know. It's encouraging to look back over 10 years and see things that we have done positively, and then, some things that we can still work on. And for that story, we actually had each member of the Town Hall staff take a different piece of what we consider the journey from 9/11. Katie ended up interviewing a firefighter and his wife. His wife worked in the World Trade Center, and he was a firefighter in New York. And I got pretty emotional just editing the piece, and I think you said it was a pretty emotional interview.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was this firefighter who dropped his wife off. His wife, they lived in Battery Park, which is right next door to where the World Trade Centers were standing. His wife worked for Bank of America. I believe it was the South Tower, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, yeah.
He dropped her off at work, made her, an omelet that morning, dropped her off in the World Trade Center for work, went to this class he was taking to become a lieutenant for the fire department, and saw, someone came in and said, there's a plane that's been hit on the North Tower. And he had to get back, and he knew his wife was in the South Tower, and he went in and he saw the plane hit, the South Tower, and as he's driving, he's counting the floors to make, see if she's going to be on the roof or if he's going to be below. And, the first tower fell, and she was in the other one, and he knew she was in there, and then that one fell, and he said it was just like Armageddon around him, and he thought his wife was dead, and he went back to his apartment, and she wasn't there, and there's a famous photo, which you'll see if you subscribe to Townhall Magazine at townhallmagazine.com.
I paid her to say that.
Right. And it was just a miracle. And it was, his wife got out in time, and she was in Chinatown, and it was a miracle. I mean, he was running in to help his buddies, his firefighter buddies. Everyone from his unit died. And so it's just one of those things where they were talking to me and saying, we had to move. That smell never went away. The memories are still very raw. We couldn't be in New York City anymore, and although 10 years have passed and we've moved on, emotions are still very raw, and it's something that you're never going to forget.
No way.
The thing that gets me about what happened in the aftermath, and it was 10 years later, to me, when you look at the original construction of these buildings, they went up very quickly when in relative terms. When you think about it, it's 2011 in advances in technology, but the buildings aren't back up, and it to me that is maybe our biggest failing when it comes to this is and not giving the victims the proper due. I think we should have put these towers up. It should have been up already, and we could have done it in a few years. Why are we talking? Is it just such overregulation? Is it just so politicized? Why haven't any towers been constructed in this place?
Well, the good thing is that I was actually privileged enough to travel to Ground Zero and take a bunch of photos and kind of see what the progress has been there. And although I do think that they could have done it faster, they're constructing in a way that's memorable, that's dedicated to the victims. It's a very specialized memorial. So you have the new buildings, then you have the fountains, and then you have the museum. So there's a lot of aspects that have gone into planning this new memorial. So there is progress, and there's hopeful progress. When you go down there now, you feel like, okay, this place is getting revived. Things are happening here, and although it's still very emotional just to even be there. I mean, it was a rough day. I do think that they've made some good progress down at Ground Zero, so that's a good thing.
And as you mentioned, those memories will never. Just telling that story,
Right.
I was starting to feel, and you're right back there when it happened.
Yep.
So so the healing will take a long time with that. We've got Katie Pavlich and Elisabeth Meinecke from Townhall.com in here, and check out Townhall Magazine. We get a chance. Great cover story about September 11th on there currently. And Cameron, let's get back to the roundtable, sir.
Do you ladies know who Colson Baker is?
No.
Do you know who Machine Gun Kelly is?
No.
Thankfully. Good to know.
He's made his night.
It's, we've been talking this week about Mr. Kelly, or Colson Baker.
Colson.
This is, if you can look him over here, this is a rapper. He's from the Cleveland area. And he got into a bit of some trouble at a Cleveland mall for arranging a flash mob. And he said, meet me at this mall, and when we get there, let's start to rage. And then hundreds of kids got there. The cops asked him not to stand on the table. He stands on the table. They pulled him down. They arrested him, blah, 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 blah.
So tased him.
No, they were actually very nice. So now another rapper I've never heard of, Kid Cudi, are getting into it over Twitter about who started the Rage SH. I am the Rager. I am forever. When you hear anyone talk about rage or raging, know where that SH originated. Guess I'm going to have to do some trademarking. Accept no substitutes. We live this SH. Then it says, then Colson Baker, I like to call him, or Machine Gun Kelly. If I was you, I'd hate me too, you jealous MFer. 216, what up? EST, what up? Lace the F up. Headed to the show. Here we go, AZ. Let me see what kind of Power Rangers y'all are working with.
Cameron,
Is that English?
I don't know.
By the way, Cameron, I'm sorry before you respond. Excellent impression, by the way.
Thank you.
You're a rapper too.
Please tell us when your album's coming out. We will support that.
We'll arrange a flash mob for you.
Thank you. I could use one. Okay, so everyone's raging and everyone's so angry. On September 17th, there is a U.S. Day of Rage where they're calling for action and planned protests. They're going to occupy Wall Street. They're going to set up tents because huge contributor to the political machine, which in turn enables Wall Street's corporate plunder of our nation. We call for nonviolent protests, but wow, that won't stick. And then, Katie, you had an article earlier this week about kids in New Jersey who are being paid to go to high school, and one of the requisites is they have to go to anger management classes. So I asked this earlier in the week, and I'm here with Old Man Pop all week, so I can't get the I can't get the take of the kids. And you guys are in your 20s, you're much closer to the situation. What is everyone so angry about?
Well,
you're talking about pretty much kids. You're talking teenagers. You're talking in their early 20s. Everyone is so angry these days. You guys seem pretty happy to me. Where does all this rage and anger coming from?
Well, clearly this is not as threatening as the Tea Party. I mean, that's what we should really be worried about, raging.
The Tea Party that needs to go straight to hell, right?
No, but I mean, I think it's just this entitlement attitude. I mean, for people in New Jersey to think that, children, teenagers, I guess, who act like children, to think that they deserve to be paid to get an education is ridiculous to me. People are already paying taxes and going to work every day so they can provide you with a public education so you can be a productive member of society.
Well, talk more about that program.
It's the entitlement attitude, and that's what it is. And it's really a lack of personal accountability. And I always go back to, I think the 60s kind of screwed us all over, quite frankly, because you have those people who didn't want any responsibility, felt like they were entitled to everything to be handed to them. They didn't have to go get a job, work hard for anything. And then they had children, and they taught their kids that. And it just continues down the cycle of, if you don't have parents telling you, you have to work hard, you're not entitled to anything, why are you angry? There are many other things to be angry about rather than, what's going on in Washington. You can be mad about it, but to protest Wall Street and break things like we've seen in England, or feel like people should pay you extra to go to school to take anger management classes, what happened to just controlling yourself and having manners? That's my question.
Well, it's like, how are you supposed to eliminate, habits in a month? If the anger management is like, you go for a month. I mean, I'm not quite sure that that's going to help you over that time. But I think the other thing too is the thing that I hear most people being upset about right now is unemployment. And anyone who's, smart enough to understand that they are upset about unemployment is also going to understand that their chances of getting a job are going to go way down if they're caught participating in any of these kind of activities.
Yep. Criminal records don't look good on unemployment applications.
Not the last time I checked.
Well, we were also told that unemployment is because of racism. So when you have that, when you use that as an excuse to, I'm not going to bother finding a job because the people are just racist, they're not going to give me a job.
No, I mean, it's
You're
it's
lying
not because
to
of your
yourself.
race. It's not because, you see this with women all the time, saying they're being discriminated against because they're female. It's not because of your sex. It's because of your background. What have you done? What experience do you have? What are you presenting to a boss that says, hire me, I'm going to do good things to you? You are not entitled to a job. You are not entitled to anything that a company offers you. You're not entitled to have a job at a corporation. Businesses are founded and based on turning a profit. And if you are not beneficial to them on a character level, on a production level, you're not going to get a job, and you're not entitled to getting one either.
And I think, frankly, I mean, you can flip that around. I mean, sometimes businesses are looking to, fill quotas, and I think that we've actually seen, a lot of times when people use racism as an example of unemployment or something like that, it's like actually a lot of times, you might get hired because you're a woman, or you might get hired because you are a minority or a representative. So I think that in and of itself is kind of an argument where it's like you really can't argue that, because for any case that you could name where you think that might have been one, I've got a different one that I can name you that you can be like, well, I might have gotten this job because of XYZ. So
when it goes back to also, if you feel like you're a victim and that someone's discriminating against you, prove them wrong. Show them all the reasons why it doesn't matter through your work ethic and through your character and what you have to offer a company. Don't do it based on a victim mentality.
Yeah,
show them what you can do for them.
Prove them wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But you brought up London, and we saw lots of video when it was going on, and we saw a lot of the people taking the flat screen TVs and taking the expensive clothes and saying, well, my tax dollars paid for this, I'm owed this. And there was the one woman who was quoted when she was taking her kid out of bringing him out of the jail or the trial, and she said, there's nothing for these kids to do. So you have, you're talking about these products of the 60s, that's what they think, there's nothing for them to do. So it's okay. Go ahead and steal things, break things, and set things afire.
I don't understand. I wish there were 12 more days in the week. I mean, 20 more hours in the day.
Yeah.
Like, how can you say that there is like nothing to do at that kind of point? I mean, I think that there's just so much that they can do. And basically they're just being lazy, and they're trying to excuse and justify lazy behavior to themselves. And I think that that's absolutely ridiculous. And frankly, they're not going to be satisfied with themselves either. I mean, we all know that it's rewarding to have accomplishments. And, if you don't set standards for yourself, you're ultimately going to be kind of disappointed in life too.
Well, it comes down to personal and parental responsibility. I mean, I was always doing chores. I was working around the house. I was always busy doing things. My parents didn't let me sit on the couch or go cause trouble. If I wasn't doing anything, it was take out the trash, vacuum the house, go outside and build something, do something, bring in some wood. It's just one of those things where if you're bored, it's your own problem. You can find something to do. And if you have nothing to do, why aren't you searching for a job? That's something to do.
And I bet you weren't happy doing those chores all the time.
Right, but it builds character, right?
That's what they say.
Anyway.
And now look at
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
look at where you are because of that character you built. You're here instead of with what's his name, Colson, machine gun, flash mobbing.
Colson Baker. How could you forget his name already?
Sorry, I'm sorry. All right, shifting
He's
gears.
raging, man.
Can you ladies help out old man Pop here? Because I've got a question for you. The presidential race, the Republicans, the field, man, if you stop paying attention for 5 minutes, it changes. So today I'm hearing, Perry's up, this is down. I just want to get your take where we are right now, and that Perry coming in has shifted. Where do you think we're at now, and where do you think we're heading?
Well, I think that one thing that Perry brings to the table, he's extremely organized, and his campaign seems to be incredibly prepared. I interviewed him a couple years ago at a conference, and I was amazed because I walked into that interview and they had done research on me. He started out by asking me questions and saying, hey, I've noticed this in your background. Can I ask you about this? And I'm thinking, I'm supposed to be the one asking. I mean, he did it in a very cordial way, and in very much. I mean, he's very personable, and I think that you know, that kind of organization and that kind of laying the groundwork and doing your research is definitely an asset to the field at this point, because it says, hey, you know, this candidate is together. He kind of has a plan. He knows where he's going. So he's injected a lot of energy because of that. I mean, you know, when you get down to discussions about policy and principle and who is best for the country, I mean, that's something else. But I do think that he has created this kind of excitement, and I think part of it is because he, you know, when I have a feeling that when Perry does something, he goes all in. Yeah. So he brings that energy too. He's a very enthusiastic person in and of himself. That same conference where I interviewed him, I mean, he was by far the best speaker there, even though, you know, you'd ask him, are you interested in running for president? This was 2 years ago, and he'd be like, no, not at all. But I mean, his speech was still the best of the conference, and many people who are in the GOP field now spoke at that conference, so it wasn't like he was, you know.
Right. And I felt like, too, before Rick Perry jumped into the race, a lot of the candidates had the same message, you know, small government, lower taxes, but Rick Perry jumped in and really had a background on one specific thing, and that was jobs. You know, I felt like before he got in, all of the candidates were kind of saying the same things, and they obviously had different backgrounds. However, I think Rick Perry has really jolted it with, the issue right now is jobs. It's going to be jobs. This new CBO report came out this week saying that unemployment's not going to drop below 8.5% until after 2012, if by then. And Rick Perry's, his record proves itself on the jobs front, and no one else can really do that. So he's up in the polls now, but like you said, polls change every single day. I think he's down in Florida. Mitt Romney's still beating him in Florida this week, so we'll see what happens. But for now, he's kind of kept the momentum after jumping in a couple of weeks ago, which is kind of rare. And
we do know that if he does become president and he's running here, jogging or whatever in D.C., he will be armed, because we found that out.
Coyotes will not be jogging that's for sure.
Actually, Katie, before we even jumped into the race, that was something that Katie and I were like, man, it'd be really cool to have a president at a press conference who, you know, you could just like see that on there and be like, now that would be a sight to behold. That would be intimidating.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, literally.
Now you talk about press conferences, and we're talking about the candidates, and there was a couple stories this week about the Bachmann campaign and their preference for local reporters, and they you see some of this with Sarah Palin, where, you know, she was kind of using the "hey, I'm on Fox News" excuse. I really can't be on your other outlets. And to me, that is a negative. I don't care if it's her. I don't care which candidate it is. But when you have, if it's true or not, when you have Don Lemon saying that he was pushed into a golf cart, or when you have the local reporters saying that someone manhandled them on the trail, I just think it's a bad sign for any candidate. And you guys being, you guys are much more closer to talking to these candidates than we are on a daily basis. What is the message, and how can they be better? Listen, yes, most of the press is out to get them. Most of the press is trying to trip them up, but you got to deal with it. And if you want to be president, you're going to have to deal with things that are much worse than a dumb question about what you read on a daily basis. So it's almost disappointing to me when you see the way some of these candidates handle the press.
Actually, perfect question. We did a feature on Michelle Bachmann in this issue, and the reporter was able to speak to her on the phone for a little while. I agree with you that I think that they definitely need to reevaluate how they're treating media. You have to understand that, yes, reporters are there to do a job. Some of them are going to come with an agenda. Some of the times you're not going to like the agenda. Other times you are, and you have to be able to distinguish that. Mm-hmm. And that's just being smart about it. I mean, you can look at a publication's record, and you can see that, and you should alter, your thinking about going into an interview about that accordingly. I mean, if Chris Matthews asks a question, you're going to have a different angle coming at it than if Megyn Kelly asks you a question. Sure. Or if Katie or I ask you a question. And I think that it's important as a candidate to be able to distinguish that. And I think you're doing yourself
and ready for it.
Exactly.
Ready for anything. Because you always talk about the 2 a.m. call, on the hotline. Mm-hmm. It could be anything. So you need to be ready to answer any question.
Well, the bottom line is the job of the press is to hold the government accountable. So whether they're out, yes, they're out to get conservative candidates. We all know this. This is the old argument. However, if you're worried about that, shouldn't you be treating those reporters substantially better because of that? You would want to prove them wrong, saying, please don't come out to get me. I'm really not as evil as you think I am. You know, you need to treat them with the standard higher than you would treat someone else, because they are out to get you. You have to prove them wrong on that level. So candidates need to make themselves accessible. Pushing reporters around is not a good thing to do. And Bill Clinton's famous for saying, you know, don't mess with people who buy ink by the barrel. And it's true. If you push a reporter into a golf cart, they're going to write about it, and it's not going to look good for you. Yeah. It's not going to be worth it in the end for you. So you might as well treat the press with respect and realize, you know, they're just doing their job most of the time. And a lot of local reporters are doing their job. Not everyone's actually out to get you. So, you know, if you're not happy with the message, change it. Give them information that will make them write a story that's favorable to you. That's your job as a candidate. That's why you have PR teams. So, you know, you can actually control a lot about what the media says about you as a candidate.
It's funny you say that, because they're just true. It is a PR team. There's a lot of people behind everyone you see, you know, flipping over pork at the state fair.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of messages that need to go out, and there's a lot of, it needs to go out with a lot more confidence.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you alienate, I mean, you can end up alienating your base with that kind of behavior. So that doesn't help you at all. I mean, you're looking at people who you're not going to, by that kind of behavior, you're not going to convert any new followers to you. And then you're disappointing the people who already believed in you. And at a certain point, when you cry wolf every single time, that's going to lose its effectiveness. People are going to be like, wait a minute, but you mean to tell me that every single reporter who ever asks you a question is out to get you? Right. I don't think so. I mean, anyone with, you know, what we call common sense would be able to say otherwise. And I do think it's disappointing, and I do think that they really need to evaluate how they treat media, especially conservative media.
And just because you're not writing down a politician's talking points in a story doesn't mean you're out to get them. Exactly. There's a huge difference between the two. There's a difference between skewing facts and make things up and actually putting talking points on a sheet of paper. I mean, as a straight news reporter, you know, that's not what you should be expecting from reporters as a candidate. It's not the way it works. So,
our Daily Caller today: survey women and youth drift away from Obama. As youngish women yourselves, what do you see amongst your more liberal friends, and do you think that he'll get them? I imagine he's going to get them back, but what's the issue now?
Well, I don't have many liberal friends.
Katie! So discriminatory.
I think it's more like they discriminate against me. It's one of those things where if you're in a bar and a guy comes to talk to you, it's like, don't ask me what I do unless you really want to know.
Unless you really love me, don't ask me.
You're either going to walk away or really like me. But on the issue of women and youth, I mean, I think that I don't really know so much about the women part. I mean, you always have, you know, I think that women have drifted away from, like I said earlier, the 60s feminism. We've seen now, you know, usually a main women's issue is abortion rights, and we actually see now that more people and more women are against abortion now, so that's drifting away from Obama's message. And also with the youth vote, I think it's strictly based on unemployment. People are getting out of college. They're unemployed after spending thousands of dollars on a degree that doesn't mean anything. They're having to move back in with their parents, either because they're underemployed, they can't afford to live on their own, or they just can't find a job. So I think they're saying, you promise us all these things, and like I've said before, the real world doesn't run on slogans like hope and change. It runs on reality and the economy, a strong economy. So I think that's why he's losing voters going into 2012.
I completely agree. And I think, too, as long as Republicans work on their messaging, I mean, so many conservative principles actually really empower women. And I think that if you have a candidate who can present those effectively, then that's going to help as well.
Talk about just an ancillary to abortion real quick. When Vice President Biden was in China and he was asked about the one child per family policy, he had a much different answer there than he did when he left there. And talk about that, and talk about the disappointment that you think women, you know, hearing that. And it's hard to me. I have a weird opinion when it comes to things like abortion and reproductive rights. I don't think a man is allowed really to have an opinion on it. I think it's you guys. Or, you know, it's up to you. It's your bodies. I have my feelings on it, but I think that my opinion on it is much less valid than what a woman thinks about it. So how do you feel about his answer there and his answer not there?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, I mean, as a woman, I am telling you, it is okay to have an opinion on it, because when it
I
comes
know
down
it's
to
okay.
creating a family, like,
No, I know it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I just think it's much more valid for what a woman thinks about this, because we don't have to deal with it. You know, it's not our decision to make, and it's not our repercussions afterwards to have.
well, I think what Biden said was completely disgraceful. I mean, this, the Berlin Wall did not come crumbling down because you say one thing in public and you say something else in private. And I think that you can apply that principle to what's going on here. I mean, to say that you're not second guessing a principle that has complete, I mean, it really, I mean, I think our colleague Guy Benson made this point, demeans women. What they do to them over there, it demeans family life, and to not have the guts to be able to phrase that in a way that is not catering and pandering to this is completely ridiculous. I think it's completely inexcusable.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time Joe Biden has made comments about China's one-child policy. He's embraced it in the past too. He has a history of embracing China's one-child policy, and for him to say that in public, and it was pretty blatant what he said. He said, "I've never questioned your policy." For him not even to question it, you know, to say, not even to say it's wrong, first of all, he should have said that. But for him to say, "Oh, I don't question that at all," to have no questions about forced abortions and, you know, the slaughtering of little girls because they're not born the right sex, for him not to even question that is disgusting. But then for the White House to come out and say, "Oh, no, like, we're cleaning up for Joe Biden again." And lately, Joe Biden's had some, you know, we always joke about Joe and his gaffes, but lately they haven't really been gaffes. They've been serious, you know, serious mistakes, and I'm hoping that we don't just give him a pass because, it's Joe making another gaffe. No, this is a serious issue, and for him not to condemn something in China that has a history of human rights violations as a whole, but especially against women and girls. And it's just funny because he's part of the Democratic Party who claims to empower women, right? But it's okay for him to embrace a one-child policy. So it was disgusting, and the way they tried to clean it up, they should have come out and apologized for it. I think the president should have apologized for it as well. But as usual, we didn't get that.
Another round of golf.
Won't hold my breath on that one.
Ladies, thank you so much for being here. Katie Pavlich and Elisabeth Meinecke from Townhall.com. Check out Townhall Magazine. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. And you won't get this copy back, by the way. Cameron and I will fight about it after you leave. Thank you, ladies, for being here so much. We love having you in studio. Love having you here on NRAnews.com and Sirius XM Patriot 125 and Cam and Company. You have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
You
having us.
too.
All right, we're gonna
Stay
take
dry.